Hi! So in this video I want to go through lesson 1.3 text and scrolling views. Let's go on over to Android Studio and let's create a new Android Studio project. Let's call this scrolling text. We'll go with the defaults and choose next. We'll go with the API 15, choose next, and then we want an empty activity. Choose next, and then we'll go with the defaults here and choose finish. When that finishes loading up, you'll see the main activity.java class, and then you'll see the activity_main.xml. If you don't see these files, we're working with the activity_main.xml file first. If you don't see that, over here in our project view, notice we have the Android filter. Under app, we want the res folder and layout, and then we have activity_main. Okay. First thing we want to do is make sure you're in the text view. If you see this design view, let me give myself a little more space. Click over to text because we want to work with the XML directly. So the first thing we will do, we want to change this. Right now the root container is using a constraint layout. We want to change that, so let's select all of this text for this tag, and we want relative layout. So I'm going to type and then I'm going to select tab, select that first one. So now notice both the opening and closing tag says relative layout. Next we need to remove this res auto because we don't need that. And the other thing you'll see in our text view is reference to the constraints. We need to remove these constraints. So let's go ahead and select those and delete them. All right, very good. So first thing we want to do is add a couple more text views. We can do this in XML by giving ourselves a little space here and then do the less than sign, and we want to type text view, and that's the one we want. And then notice it automatically gives us a couple of layout options. For the layout width, we want to say match parent, so I can click that, press return. For this one I want to wrap content, so I'll just press return. Now I'm going to look at my notes here and let's add a few more properties to this text view. First, let's give this an ID. And we type ID, and then notice it suggests Android:ID. That's what we want. And then here, when we have the @+ID, this is we're assigning the ID. So go ahead and press tab for that. And we're going to call this article_heading. And then I'm going to go past the quote and then press return. And then we need a background, so let's do background. Notice it says Android:background, that's what we want. Press tab. Now we're going to set a color, and the color we want is color, so @color /color, color primary, so that first one. So press tab. If I type the quote, then it'll go to the next, and I can press return to go to the next line. We want padding. So type padding, and we want Android:padding, press tab. And for this, we're going to say 10 dp. Then we want text appearance. So go ahead and select that one. And here we're going to say @Android, and then we want style /text appearance. And this one was already, I'd used this before, but if you don't get the autocomplete, then you type dot and then device default dot large. That's what we want. All right, then we want to say text style, and we're going to say bold. And again, I'm just pressing tab. Whenever the autocomplete auto suggestion pulls up a value we want, we press tab and it enters that value. All right, let's go to the next line, and we're going to finally say text. We're going to say article title. Okay, if you want to see this while you're editing the XML file, over here on the right we have a preview button. Go ahead and click the preview button. The other thing we need to do, and I realize I missed one spot, let's just change this. under background, we also want to add a new property called text color. And for text color, we want to say at color, sorry, let me back up. We want to say at Android, and then we say color / white. When you reference at Android, it's basically you're referencing the operating system, the SDK that's built in. So we're saying we want an Android color white. When we do the at color, you're actually referencing your resource file. If you haven't seen your resource files, here under res and then values, we have colors. So when we reference color, we're referencing a color from that. So at color / color primary is mentioned in this colors XML. If I double click that, notice what we've got: primary, primary dark, primary color accent. So you can change these values here in your colors.xml resource file, and then it'll update based on that. So that's the difference between when we say at color and at Android. Saying at Android means I want a value from within the resources that are built into the device to this version of the SDK that we're building against. Okay, so notice over here on the right we still have article title. Notice the hello world is still kind of hanging out here. We're going to get to that in a second. But for now, let's go ahead and let's create another text view. So we're going to say the @ sign, and we're going to say text view, and then again we're going to say match parent, and we're going to say wrap content. And let's give ourselves some properties. For this one, we want to give it an ID, and so we're going to say ID, and we're going to say plus ID, which is meaning we're assigning an ID, and we're going to call this article _ subheading. Then we're going to do a property called layout _ below. What this does is this says, hey, I want you to place this text view below another object that's on the screen. Well, in this case, it's the article heading. So that's the one we want. So now we're saying we're going to place this below the article heading. Then we're going to give this some padding. And at the moment, let's stop here for a second. What happens is we have a value for padding, we have a value for the text. Notice how it's giving us this warning we should use a string resource, is what it's saying. Let's fix that right now. So within the text, let's go ahead, and if you press Alt Enter or Alt Return, depending on your Mac or Windows, you get the context menu and it says extract string resource. Then we have article _ title, so that's what we want, so go ahead and click OK. Now, we want to extract the padding value so that we can use it in other objects. So with this mouse here, notice in our little suggestions, it says extract dimension resource. So if I click that, now I can say padding _ regular. So now we are referencing that. So in this text view where I have my padding, instead of typing 10 dp like I did before, now I reference the, it's called at dimen for dimensions padding regular. So notice here, if I go back to my values folder and notice I have a dimens.xml, and notice here's that extracted dimension. Awesome. All right, let's go back to the XML. And so we've got the padding now. Let's go with text appearance. And for this text appearance, we're going to do the one similar to what we already did, which is Android. And then we said style / now, because we used it recently, it'll show up at the top here. So go ahead and tap for that. And finally, the text, we're going to say text, and I want the one that says, whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back here. We're going to say text, and I want Android text, and we're going to call this article _ subtitle. Now, when we extract the string resource what we want, extract string resource, and then it automatically takes that, suggests it for us. So we click OK. Awesome. Okay, so now we have two text views that are where we want them. And then we have this third text view, which is kind of hanging out. Let's fix this one up a little bit. We're going to give this an ID. We're going to say ID and then plus ID. We're going to call this article because that represents the article text. Then we're going to say layout below. And for this, we want to lay out below the article subheading. So go ahead and select article subheading. So now, whoops, I take that back, sorry. We want, why is that not where we want? Article subheading. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can figure this out. Hold on. We want to say line spacing. This is another one called line spacing extra. We're going to call this 5SP. And then we want to give this padding. So we'll say padding. And we're going to use our dimension padding regular. And then finally text, instead of hello world, we're going to call this article text. Okay, let's double check this. Someone's going to be saying, Brent, I see your problem, and I'll say, what? I don't see it. And then someone will say, let's verify what we've got. So we have article heading for the first text view. And then the second text view is, article subheading and then article heading. Layout below, article, whoops, yep, someone's yelling at the screen. Subheading, I didn't have the right, I got ahead of myself. So layout below, article subheading, which is the name of this one. Someone was screaming, I heard it, I heard you. Okay, let's extract this string resource. You can click within the text and then press Alt return or Option enter and whoops. And we want extract string resource and then article underscore text. So now we have everything extracted. We also have this line space extra. Notice we have this hard coded. Let's extract this as a dimension resource. And we're going to call this line underscore spacing. Click OK. Very good. So now let's take a look at what we have. We have our title, subtitle, and text. So the next step we want to do is add a bunch of text because we want to show, this is called scrolling text, right? So we want to add enough text that we have to scroll off of the screen. Now, normally in a real app, you wouldn't hard code the string value for the articles. You would load it from a database or a web service. But for our purposes, we want to load it from the string resource. And since we already have a string resource called article text, if we go to our strings, and notice we have this article text. So we can go ahead and paste a bunch of text in here. And it's a little tricky because it doesn't just take regular text. You have to clean it up a bit so that it behaves, because this is an XML file, and XML has certain rules about how text should be entered. Well, where can we get some large amount of text? Well, if you have some paragraphs of text somewhere on a file that you've used, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to the Code Labs webpage, which we've been to before. I'm just going to go to the text and scrolling views lesson, and I'm just going to grab some text here. So if I click this and select, I'm just going to copy that and go back to Android Studio, and I'm going to go here and I'm just going to select that and then right click and choose paste. Now it's a little messy, so we need to fix it. First thing that's happening, and you'll see this because it's saying, hey, apostrophes not preceded by backslash. We can't have an apostrophe in the text string value. We have to escape that apostrophe. The simplest way to do that, if we press Control F or Command F to find, then we just type an apostrophe. It's going to select all the apostrophes for us. And you could do find and replace, but we're just going to do this manually because it's right here. But notice how they're all highlighted. I'm putting a backslash in front of all of these apostrophes. Now let's check this, make sure there's no other apostrophes in our string. Now the next thing that's happening is there's a lot of returns in here, and the text is breaking up this string resource. And so if I save this and I go back to activity main, the text doesn't show up because this is an invalid string and it's going to throw an error if I run it. So to fix that, let's go back to where we have a new line, and I'm just going to press delete. And then when I delete it, notice here, if I press enter, now when I press enter there, notice it's a little faint, but notice how this wants to fold this string for us. And notice how we have this little indicator that there's a line. This is now connected to this second line is connected to the top line. So in order to get this line connected, so let's just delete, and notice what happens. So now it's showing up, and then I can press, so what I'm doing is clicking and then I'm pressing backspace to go there. And I'm going up. Okay, so now let's go to the very end because I got to make sure my string, if I press return here, now notice how the string value behaves. Let me go ahead and close this. I don't need my find anymore. Okay, so in the XML string resource, you can add a couple of HTML tags. You can do bold and italics. Everything else is going to be ignored and it'll show up as plain text. So you can't use HTML to format this, but you can add line breaks using \n. You can add tabs by \t. You can do some modifying within the string. So for example, if I put \n here in front of these will show up as new lines, meaning a carriage return between them. I can have a couple of them \n, and then I'll have two line breaks here. If you want to add bold text, then we can surround them with tags here like this, and then they'll show up as bold. If we want an italics, we can come in here and we can do italic. And notice it's giving us code hinting. So it says bold, italics, and underline. So those are the available tags. And in this case, we want to close this tag. All right. So finally, let's add a URL. And we're just going to put this here. We're just going to do a new line. I want to do a new line there. Oops. And then, I'm getting ahead of myself. Up here on this new line, I'm just going to say www.google.com. So I have a little URL. Now, let's see what happens. Okay, so go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and run the app. If you have a device, you can connect a device. I'm just going to use an emulator right now. Okay, so here it is. Now notice we've got a few things going on. We have our bold text. We've got our URL, but it's not highlighted. And then we have our ScrollView italicized down here. And we can certainly add more new lines in order to space these out so that we have some paragraphs, but I can't scroll the text. I can't see all my text. Well, we're going to fix that. So in the next video, we're going to finish up this portion, this lesson in the next video, and check it out. All right, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your relatives, and thanks for watching.